COVID. 2 years ago, we hoped and prayed for a finish line. Now in spring of 2022, we know there may never be a finish line. No final goalpost. We are learning how to live with COVID, how to get our kids back to learning.
I was looking for how tall my friends are to see how they actually sound like.
How to deal with a workforce that has new ideas about the office and even work itself.
And I fell in love with it immediately. And I said, I know I have to do this.
And how to do it all while focusing on our mental health.
I know there's a stigma around mental health treatment. Hopefully this generation is helping to fight that.
And our physical health.
The way I eat, the way I live helps me relieve my stressors daily.
In the next hour, we'll look at how we are adapting and innovating in dealing with the new normal. We'll hear from Montclair State University experts.
We've seen a much lower number of transmissions on campus.
And from students sharing their tips to avoid burnout.
Once we all figure out our own niche, I think collectively we can overcome this burnout.
And we'll introduce you to some who are taking the road less traveled.
So I decided to go back to college, I guess probably about a year and a half ago.
From the News Lab at the School of Communication and Media at Montclair State University, this is Focus. Disruption, moving forward.
Welcome to Focus Disruption, Moving Forward. I'm Louis Biantalillo.
And I'm Bernice Degua.
The pandemic is still with us today after over 2 years, and we are all learning how to go on with our lives. In this hour, we will bring you stories about resilience and creativity.
During the pandemic, many quit their jobs. Others used this period to reevaluate their lives and try new things. Hannah Cox reports.
Prior to the pandemic, lawyer Deanna Critchley spent her days attending hearings for people that had been committed into mental hospitals.
Since I was a kid, I always wanted to be a lawyer. There was this side of me that was very artsy and creative that I kind of pushed to the side because I only considered ever being a lawyer.
But once the pandemic struck, she decided to change the aroma of her life. In 2021, Deanna opened Alchemy Scent Studio in Montclair, New Jersey, a place where people can design their own candles and fragrances.
I never really truly felt fulfilled. It was a practical job. It wasn't my passion. I'm turning 50. I didn't want to feel trapped in my life and my career, and I wanted to show my children that you're never trapped in anything. It's a lot of work, but I'm so happy. And when I walk into this place, into this space, I'm calm, I'm at ease, I'm happy. And the people that come into the business are happy being here. And that's what makes me satisfied, that I know that I'm bringing joy to people.
Jeanette Velodico is a devoted mother who balanced raising 3 children and running her business, Trinity Consulting Group, after her husband passed away in 2013. When the pandemic hit, she found more time and freedom.
So in 2013, my husband died, and I was then faced with sort of rebuilding a life with 11-year-old triplets. The great news is that, kids are resilient, and we had a great relationship, but I knew that my kids needed me to be around.
The role my mom took on when my father passed away, it just goes into that hustler mindset, My mom, she's passionate.
I am a 56-year-old journalism major at Brookdale Community College. I'm also the president of the Innovation Network and Women in Learning and Leadership.
After high school, Jeanette gave community college 2 different tries, but never graduated. The pandemic changed that.
I think it's just awesome that although, my mom is my mom, she still has that college kid spirit and passion for what she's doing while also having the passion for being a mom,
The other students are all fall into the 18 to 21 range, so it's sort of like being around my kids.
I remember when my mom going through midterms and final seasons and pulling her hair out, and I would come out and be like, yep, welcome to the club. My mom going through college and really trying to take this, using the pandemic to take this new avenue in her life has brought us closer.
From going back to college to opening a business, Jeanette and Deanna each used the pandemic to venture boldly and reorient their life's direction. And for each, it worked out for the best. For Montclair News Lab, I'm Hannah Cox.
Thanks, Hannah. Well, those two women are among millions who explored different paths over the last 2 years. NewsLab reporter and Montclair managing editor Emma Coughlin is in Studio B with our first panel.
Primary school to college to work. That's the path to success, right? Kyle Wilson, Abraham Sharkus, and Drixon Kaiser would not agree. The last 2 years have allowed us to step back from our lives, teaching us that there is no right or wrong way to reach success. These men are proof of that. So, gentlemen, I know that the world has changed tremendously in the last 2 years, and your lives have also changed tremendously. Can you tell me a little bit how COVID changed your lives?
I think it leveled the playing fields, definitely. For everything to come to a standstill, for the NBA playoffs to be canceled, it meant that everybody was essentially competing on the same grounds. It meant that I could make this company, get popular on social media because everybody was on their phones 24/7. And it meant that I didn't have to have an office to actually meet people. I could do everything virtually out of my father's home. So it definitely made things a lot easier to start my startup.
I think for me, similar to you, it allowed me space to slow down. It allowed me space to see things that actually matter to me, to make a significant change in my life. Prior to COVID, I was following more of an entrepreneurial path at the core of what it was. Business, marketing, sales, essentially that's what it was. But in society, as it slowed down, I had a heightened awareness of what actually mattered. And to me, I pursued a path more so in mental health.
Mm-hmm. Actually, like you, I did the whole entrepreneurial thing, during COVID and a little bit once it died down a little bit. Mm-hmm. I started selling glasses on the street for like $10 a pop. And then,
on the street?
Yeah. And then eventually it grew into like $50.
Yeah.
So that was my main source of making money at the time, instead of working a 9 to 5, which was almost impossible because everything was shut down. So it's just like, okay, where I go from now? So like, okay, I need to find some money. Let's try something out. So That's what I did.
You said that slowing down kind of helped you realize what you wanted. Do you think if COVID hadn't have happened, do you think you would be where you are today or realized what you've realized?
I think opportunities strike at different times. So if it wasn't COVID, maybe 10 years from now, I would have suffered potentially a loss in my life, causing me to slow down or take a step back to re-examine what actually fundamentally matters to me in my life and how can I be a better agent of change in society. And that allowed me to flip the script.
Yeah, I agree. Because to me, when COVID wasn't a thing, I was lost. I'm just like, okay, what do I do from here? Because I'm not going to college. That's not happening. And then my mom said like, hey, you're gonna have to find something to do. So if it wasn't for COVID, I'd probably be in the house, honestly speaking. So I'm just like, COVID kind of helped me in a sense. It didn't really hinder me at all.
Yeah, I agree. That's there was an entire arc that I had a person and that everybody else goes through, in which you're trying to figure out what your passion is and what you want to do with your life after high school. So I was a junior. I had no clue. I was on the debate team, but I wasn't one of the best debaters. I didn't know what I could have done in the future. I definitely wanted to go to law school, but these aspirations, it felt like something was off about it. You're not so sure about things. So having COVID slow everything down, slow society to a halt, a standstill, that allowed us to develop, new passions.
So where are you now?
Living my best life, being of service to people that I absolutely love, and sensing and grasping how to be a better agent of change in the society we live in collectively.
I'm in tech, baby. I run a tech company in downtown Newark. Of course, I do the business side of it. I do the programming. I do the marketing. I do the meeting people and networking. So yes, I'm in tech.
For me right now, it's just overall building my portfolio, working on films and television, and hopefully coming here in the next 2 years.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I know about primary school educations, particularly high schools, you're taught that college is the way to go. Get a 4-year degree, graduate, and start working. Did that attitude hinder any of you at all? And how did you fight that?
It bothered me.
I thought about the debt.
It conformed me first until I was able to shake out of it and see that it doesn't have to be as traditional as society says it is.
What would you say to people who are in that position now? They're getting ready to graduate high school and figure out where they want to be in the world, but they're not sure exactly how to do it. What would you say to them?
Go outside.
Totally agree. Go outside, relax a little bit, and I think take the time to discover who you really are. And then from there, blossom.
Yeah, I definitely, my advice is going outside. Nothing good can come from, harboring a whole bunch of feelings of doubts.
I'm so sorry. That's all the time we have for today, but thank you for this great conversation, all of you, and back to Bernice and Lewis.
Thanks, Emma. We'll check back with you later on. An important part of this hour is your questions to our experts. Maria Hoffman is standing by in the Strategic Communication Center with two special guests, Dr. Dawn Silveris, Vice President of Student Development and Campus Life, and Casey Keegan, Nurse Practitioner of the University Health Center.
Thanks, Bernice. We gave students the opportunity to ask us questions on social media about what they want to know about the campus. A lot of students are curious about the COVID regulations and how the mask mandate will change from this semester to next semester. What do you guys think will be the difference?
So I think that the campus will know shortly that we will be moving to a mask optional stance, and I think that will take us through the summer, and then we'll reevaluate at the end of the summer. But we think that given our high levels of vaccinations on campus and people even getting their booster shots, our students and our faculty staff, that we can move to that. We've seen a much lower number of transmissions on campus. I think that we know in the outside community and many other institutions in New Jersey, particularly the other state institutions, have already gone to a mask optional mandate. I think it's time for us, and I think the president's very comfortable. We wanted to stay the course for the rest of this semester just because we've had such success in keeping transmission levels low. But I think as we start the summer, we will see a mask optional mandate start.
Right. I noticed with the pandemic, a lot of people suffered with their mental health as well, Do you think that the campus is going to have any more resources than they already do to help those students who are suffering with maintaining their mental health?
Well, we have CAPS on campus, which is the Counseling and Psychological Services. Everyone knows that mental health has been, very hard for people through the pandemic. So I think CAPS, as well as, situations off campus have been a little bit backlogged. But I know that they have on their website, they can do virtual, they can do in person now. And I know also the state of New Jersey has New Jersey Mental Health Cares, and the resources are also on the CAPS website. But that's a statewide mental health information and referral service too that students can reach out to. They can also always come to the health center, and we can kind of get the ball rolling, listen to their needs, and kind of help push them in the right direction and give them some feedback.
Have you noticed any difference with students that you've talked to about their mental health?
Oh, absolutely. I think there is a number of our students that are really, really challenged this year and last year too, because of the global pandemic, feeling isolated, just feeling they're not comfortable socially. And that's troubling for us because we want our students to be successful. One of the things that we're going to be doing this summer, and this is kind of new and haven't really talked about it publicly yet, is that we will be training a number of our staff within student development and campus life to be called Train the Trainers for Mental Health First Aid, which is something that we will then provide to faculty and staff who are interested to gain some skill sets in order to help students when they come in and they talk about being stressed or being sad, that they will have some of the skills to be able to talk them through some positive feedback and how to get resources on campus. And we think that could have a really big impact for our students in the coming fall.
And it's really important for students to be comfortable with the people they're talking to.
Absolutely.
I noticed a lot of students asked about individuals. They wanted to talk to the ambassadors. How can they get to know those people better that they'll be speaking to about their mental health?
Well, I think our student ambassadors, we're trying to increase the number, and we did this semester. But again, with masking and other things that were happening, it still put a little bit of social distance. And so I'm really hoping that when it comes to the fall, and if we are still in a mask optional environment at that point, that there'll be more opportunities for students to mingle with our mental health ambassadors, those peers that can really have good conversations with other peers about the resources on campus. And we hope to train those ambassadors also in mental health first aid to be real assets to the community.
Thank you guys so much for talking with me. We'll be back with more questions in a little bit.
Kids are facing some of the toughest challenges from the pandemic. Virtual learning was a temporary solution in the midst of a crisis, but now many experts fear that children are far behind in their education. NewsLab reporter Giovanna Boggins reports how educators and students are finding solutions.
Meet 7th grader Emmanuel Unabolele. He was a 5th grader in March 2020 when COVID-19 forced education online. At first, he liked virtual learning because it helped him focus.
It really did help me with my grades because then you wouldn't have to focus on all the disturbance in the classroom. You would get to do your work and you get to finish it faster because it's like in a quiet space.
Janae Chestnut Thompson, a second-year 3rd grade teacher in Newark.
Teaching virtually was really difficult, especially as a first year.
And youth therapist Kristen Hanish's clientele is increasing.
To know the head count before we find a location period, because then it'll be based on price. So now with the pandemic, I feel as though that mental health services have kind of blossomed.
Each one is adjusting to the new normal. Over time, students became more focused on what was going on in their homes instead of the lesson. Now 3rd graders are behind on reading and writing foundation skills.
They're in 3rd grade and the expectation is higher, but we're working really hard to play catch up.
As virtual learning began to shift into in-person, Kristen recognizes 3 obstacles students face when returning to in-person classes. 1. Students who once thrived working on their own time now have to follow a structured schedule. 2. Students are afraid to catch COVID and bring it home to their families. And 3. Students are lacking basic social skills. Emmanuel was ready to return to school in person.
No, I had no doubts. I was just ready to go back to school.
Janae says her #1 goal for students is knowing how to read and write, so she established open communication between students and parents.
There's pretty much a direct correlation between my students who are struggling tremendously and parent involvement.
Christian says the demand for counseling is high, but the number of therapists is low. Her clients get out of school late afternoon and her schedule is full until 9 p.m. But she notices mental health has become part of the discussion as in-person learning resumes.
I feel that mental health clinicians, teachers, guidance counselors, they're all on top of providing the services needed for these kids that have never had the services offered before.
To combat students' anxiousness, Christian has social groups every Saturday morning to teach manners and basic communication, and Janae has a healing circle where students sit in a circle and express their feelings. While things are getting back into a normal groove, Janae hopes that she and other teachers can receive more support.
I think the biggest thing that society can do for teachers is extend us grace.
Being exhausted, Janae says she enjoys seeing the fruits of her labor through student appreciation, and students like Emmanuel look forward to seeing his teachers in person. A student, a teacher, and a clinician, each moving forward through a pandemic that is still a part of our lives. For Montclair News Lab, I'm Giovanna Boggins.
Denise DeLuca is a licensed clinical psychologist and art therapist with years of experience working with children. Thank you so much, Denise, for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah, so nice to meet you. I just wanted to, first, before we start, Denise and Bernice at the table.
I know.
It's fun. So I just mentioned that you have years of experience working with children. Can you just talk a little bit about how the pandemic affected mental health specifically within kids?
So I see several different age children in my office, in my private practice, and it's affected children in many different ways. So for example, some kids, when we first had the shutdowns and we had to close everything up, some kids were kind of felt relieved and they were glad they didn't have to go to school and things are a little better because the reasons they were coming in were for issues of social anxiety, so it kind of helped them. When they had to return back, though, it was really hard and very difficult, so they struggled. Overall, most people have struggled with a lot of anxiety and depression just from being interrupted.
Yeah. So cutting off that, social interaction that you get from going to school, how did you see that affecting not only the kids who suffer from social anxiety, but did you see a learning deficit within these kids?
I'm not their teacher, but I did see them struggle in school, especially when they were virtual. They couldn't, a lot of them have attention issues. It was hard to attend. Other family members were around. There was a lot more chaos in the house, in a sense. So yeah, in that respect, yes.
Did you have any tips for these children that you were seeing in terms of just remaining calm and, still working on that social anxiety and bettering it with a closed environment?
Yeah, there were a lot of tips we had to work on. We had to work on finding your own space, which sometimes in some homes was easier, in some it was difficult, because so finding their own space, taking their own time to separate if they could, or just to focus. But a lot of times the parents had to get more involved and help in some of these instances. Headphones were the best solution for many of the children and families.
I found that listening to music definitely helped a lot, being able to just not physically leave my home, but just be in a space where I felt comfortable. Now, last question, do you have any advice that parents can do to help their kids as they continue to either be in school, go to school in person, or stay home?
So when they are home, I think like a lot of the families, it helps if they can eat a meal together, talk about what's going on, but also allow them to have their own space, because I think kids process on their own a little. I mean, parents can help, but sometimes parents need to also let them go listen to music if they need to, or be with friends if they can. Encourage socialization when they can, in whatever they feel safe, in a safe way. I think that really will help.
So encouragement is
encouragement, as much back to normal routine as you can. Giving them space when they need it, because everyone was crammed together, so now sometimes people need to be,
of course, a
little more spread out.
All right, well, thank you so much, Denise, for joining us. Focus Disruption is a collaboration between all the student media organizations here at Montclair State. We're joined now by Anandaji Cruz Rosario from WMSC.
My name is Anandaji Cruz Rosario. I'm the news director here at WMSC. Recently, we all experienced the pandemic and how it affected us and school, essentially, because we went through Zoom University. So as part of WMSC's segment for Focus Disruption, I interviewed Angie, a local 6th grader, who told us about how her experience was amidst COVID. Here it is.
What was your experience going into remote learning?
No one had no idea what they were doing. They would assign us all the work for every single subject, and we'd be done by like 10 a.m. And then we just go onto like Zoom, check in, see how everyone was doing, see if they finished the work, and then leave. And then we play video games for the rest of the day.
How do you think it affected your learning?
It really put a dent in it, because like I said before, we didn't learn any of the basic tools at all. We didn't learn anything about fractions. So when we came into 5th grade, she's like, all right, guys, so multiplying fractions. And we were like, whoa, what? And she's like, wait, you guys didn't learn fractions? And we were like, no. So we had to relearn everything. So that set us behind by a lot.
So were the grades still the same as it was before COVID happened?
We did get report cards, but my grades significantly dropped by a large amount, because I didn't know anything.
How was wearing face masks when you went back to school and you were finally in person?
It was hard. I couldn't hear anything that the teacher was saying, along with the giant shields that were clear on our desks. They had a bunch of smudges on them. They were really dirty. They weren't clear. And I couldn't see the smartboard at all. And I was really the only person following the guidelines of COVID.
I mean, are you guys still wearing masks?
No, our school got rid of the mask mandate.
Wow. How do you feel about that?
Very relieved, because the mask, it was giving me a bunch of like acne and it was hurting my ears.
Oh no. Well, I'm happy that you're doing better, and hopefully we don't have to go back to masks in that stance. But thank you so much, Angie.
After the interview, I spoke with Angie's mom, and she told us that apparently Angie's grade was a low 85, which is pretty good. That's low to Angie, but to a lot of college students, that's amazing. So great job, Angie.
Student athletes and coaches have faced unique challenges within the last few years. The pandemic paved the way for athletes and coaches to tackle mental health as a team.
We were playing in Florida. The next instant, we were on a bus back to Panzer, and we were told, you know, get your stuff, just leave, don't come back.
And it being taken away from you, like, it really took a toll on a lot of people. But the one positive thing that did come out of it, we can't take anything for granted.
I'm director of a youth lacrosse program, and with mental health, I think it's important to even start at that young age group. Mental health has always been extremely important to me my entire life. Someone very close to me died by suicide when I was only in high school. It's something I always keep in the back of my mind. And now that I'm working with young adults, it's even more prevalent in my life.
We would go into games not having the mental side of it. So some games we went into without having that confidence of like, okay, I could step in and shoot this shot.
You're constantly monitoring your players' mental state when you're a coach. I think the one thing we all learned as a program was how resilient each guy was. And life got completely flipped upside down. Our guys learned how mentally tough they were, how resilient they were, because I think coming out of the lockdown, we improved. They've pushed themselves through things. So I think during that time frame, it was really valuable for them. They could all rely on each other a lot, which allowed them to experience things together and maybe pull each other through sometimes when they needed it.
His coaching style hasn't changed at all. He's been the same person that I've met when I was in high school when he started recruiting me. He pushes us to our limit every single day in practice. He holds us accountable. Another challenge we faced also was not being able to be together, and that's just something that we take pride in. We treat each other like brothers, and not being able to physically be with each other to get better was definitely challenging through the pandemic.
I'm a 24/7 guy. My phone's on 24/7, so anytime they need me, they know they can call or text. So I think that allowed them to be comfortable when they really did need something to just pick up the phone and reach out. We are a relationship-driven program. The FaceTimes were important for us, and I think that made it easy for guys to be comfortable during that time to say, hey, this is a struggle for me. I just continued to reinforce that, hey, we're here for you. We can't see each other face to face, obviously, but we can solve a lot of things by getting on the phone or communicating that way.
We have to make sure as coaches that we're going out of our way to check on student athletes. A lot of times athletes want to give off their persona that everything is okay, and we know that's not always the case. I always want students to come to me first just because I'm working with you every single day. I truly know you as a person, so if I'm able to help you, I want to help you.
She's kind of like a friend, but also a coach at the same time.
It's great to have someone like her that is so loving towards us, and just someone we trust and someone that we can tell whatever we feel without being judged. Mental health doesn't just affect student athletes and their coaches, but professors and parents as well. Reporter Emma Coughlin is in Studio B to continue the conversation.
As we all began to reintroduce ourselves back to society, many noticed a change in their mental health, but were unaware that burnout could be the cause of it. Here to speak about their own experiences with burnout and how we can move on from here are Montclair State student Nicole Mendez, parent David Bringle, and Professor Ro Capiello. So you've all experienced burnout, whether it was personally or whether you saw it with the people around you. What do you think the solution is to this?
I think we're all going to carry the baggage of the COVID experience, the pandemic experience with us for a while, but I think the way to move on is really to embrace what's ahead in the future and recall the things that we really love doing and doing in a normal setting and just getting back on with our lives. There's going to be a lot of lessons and a lot of discussion that's going to come after this all. But I think it's just really embracing what was great about our lives and what we loved and just getting right back on the horse and enjoying that.
I also think embracing what is. You know, we resist it. We go, I wish it wasn't here. I wish things were the way they were. And really our peace is in acceptance. I'm going to accept this is how it is. I'm going to learn to work with that. I'm going to figure out my way in this. I'm going to find my resilience in this. And whenever we resist anything, it persists, right? So if we just accept it, and then space opens up in our head to kind of find our way through it.
Yeah, I think to add on to everything, it's the awareness of it as well. And I think one of the most beautiful parts about moving forward with this is that everyone has their own unique way of persevering.
Absolutely.
Whether it be through meditation, journaling, exercising, everyone has their own niche. And once we all figure out our own niche, I think collectively we can overcome this burnout, especially after the pandemic.
Sure, and I think if we can learn anything from this, it's that we should be better prepared for the next major curveball that's coming in our life.
Right, because it will.
Yeah,
it will come. And this was here to show us we're one world, so we have to cooperate with each other. This didn't just happen to one person; it happened to everybody. And so it's like the liver trying to say to the brain, "Well, it's your problem if you have a brain tumor. I'm fine." We have to work with each other, and I think that that's the whole purpose of this, was to kind of unify us, get us off our your side, my side thing. Mm-hmm. Even though it kind of pushed us deeper into that. Sometimes like homeopathy, we have to go into that and then come back into the middle. So hopefully we learn that.
So you're talking about some of the positive aspects that came out of the pandemic. And burnout is not something that's new. It's been around forever, and it's not going to go away. Even if it's in relation to COVID, it's going to eventually go away, hopefully. But do you think COVID inspired us as a society to kind of embrace burnout and say, it's okay that I feel this way?
Oh, I saw that. I saw a lot more people, and whether it was COVID or just the right timing, more people talking about mental health. I have a student that comes back every year that was one of my students, and I specifically ask him to come and speak to all my classes because he talks about having his own crisis and how he sought help on campus in our mental health facilities. And what's so unique about him is that he's a Latin man that apparently a Latin man, that's not the norm to do, or it's taboo to do. So he went right through that barrier in himself and sought mental health. And when he comes and talks about his experience and him doing that, I feel like it gives permission for everybody else to talk about, yeah, sometimes I don't do so great mentally or emotionally. Maybe I should go see a professional about this. So I have that kid come back every year. He'll come back as long as I'm here because, but I do think that more of the conversation is around our mental health and putting that as important, where 10 years ago or my younger generation, that would be like, no, you don't do that.
Right. I think the stigma of mental health has definitely decreased because of the pandemic, because we were so isolated. We had no other choice but to stick with our own thoughts and stay at home with the family that may or may not have been always healthy. I think that because we have came to that conclusion or came to that time where it's like everyone has been affected by it, it's now, what are you going to do with this? And how are you going to push forward? And I think that that's so beautiful that someone is able to now embrace that they have been through something before. And I think we're not as afraid to speak more about our emotions rather than repressing them.
Yeah, I think it was a time to really be introspective. I know, personally speaking, I was in the same same institution for 28 years and then lost my job because of the pandemic. And I had to learn to deal with my emotions and still be able to, help my family and be able to support. So it was a very introspective time for me, and I hope everybody else took that time to look inside themselves, and if they needed mental health assistance, go get it. That understand that it doesn't have to be stigmatic, that when you have a traumatic situation, especially one affecting everyone globally, the only way to pull yourself out of that is to look inside and seek the help that you need. And
Thank you all. This was a great conversation. Thank you. And back to Lewis and Bernice.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Great information. And for those of you that want a checklist on how to avoid burnout, here's News Lab reporter Maria Hoffman.
We've all felt it. Stress, exhaustion, and the worst case scenario, burnout. What can we do about it? How can we prevent it? Can we maintain our mental health in college? I went to mental health experts Alan Hill and Stephanie Roth-Goldenberg to find the answers.
The best ways to address burnout is really to know how to set boundaries, right? I think for all people, and especially college students, there can be so many things that you take on in your life. It can be hard to have enough time for yourself and to maintain the energy and mental health that you need to really flourish and to really do well. So knowing when to say no, I think goes a long way, and being able to prevent the burnout before it even starts to occur is really important.
I use the metaphor of if it was raining and you look at the weather and you're like, oh, I'm gonna leave my house with a raincoat or an umbrella, rather than now I'm in the middle of the storm and I need a raincoat, but I'm stuck outside. So I think if someone feels their mental health slipping in some way, it's like they should get the umbrella before they're all the way out in the storm, if that's possible.
The many symptoms and warning signs for burnout include low energy levels, wanting to always sleep, a sense of jitters, trouble focusing, and just overall fatigue and irritability. But what can we do to combat this?
Research shows that as little as 10 minutes a day of meditation helps rewire your brain to be at a calmer baseline. I know there's a stigma around mental health treatment. Hopefully this generation is helping to fight that.
So that's what the experts say. But what about students? Elena Perez, a Rutgers student, took a semester off last spring after struggling with her mental health.
I feel like one of the most isolating things with mental illness is because of the stigma around it. You don't want to talk to anyone about it. You keep it away from your friends. You don't feel like it's okay to take a break. That was my longest period of time I haven't been in school since kindergarten or pre-K. So it was interesting, but it also gave me time to prioritize myself and my mental health in a really weird time we're in.
Coming back to school, what was that like?
I called it my redemption semester. I felt like a failure for taking time off. So coming back, I felt like I owed myself to have like the best semester I've ever had.
What would Perez say to students experiencing burnout?
The first thing is it's okay to ask for help and you're not alone.
Tips from professionals and a student to maintain mental health while in college. From Montclair News Lab, I'm Maria Hoffman.
One of the things that helped many of us push through is being able to laugh, even in the face of adversity. We're joined now by SCM Professor Guy Nicolucci, who is an Emmy Award-winning comedy writer. Thank you for joining us, Professor.
Thanks for having me, Lewis.
Absolutely. So you're a comedy writer yourself.
Yes.
And there have been so many jokes, good and bad, about the pandemic. What's the best one? We'll start with that.
I don't know. They're all lousy. I stayed home and cried during the pandemic. I don't know about you. But no, I mean, the one joke you always see is the people standing up and they don't have their pants on in front of the Zoom.
Right.
Done again. And then the other jokes are problematic. Well, the thing is, it's hard to do a joke about the pandemic or the victims, so it becomes a joke about a personality attached. Like when Jimmy Fallon announced that he had tested positive for COVID, the joke was, this is the first time in 5 years that his numbers are higher than Stephen Colbert's.
There you go.
So that was one of my favorites.
That's a good one. All right. So how has humor helped us get through the entire pandemic, even now?
It hasn't helped me a bit.
Not a bit. Really?
No. I stayed home and was depressed and looked at a screen, but then I'm a comedy writer, and that's what we do anyway. No, I mean, just actually, humor is always useful in any times of pressure as a release. Anything that distracts us and makes us think about something else other than the fact that we're likely going to die if we go buy some groceries is a help.
Right.
I mean, do you remember, Gilbert Gottfried, who just passed away, may he rest in peace, was famous for like 2 weeks after 9/11, getting up and doing jokes about planes flying into the Empire State Building. And then he went into the Aristocrats,
right?
Which, you know, was, talk about a distraction, you know, 5 minutes of pure filth. You forgot that we were, you know, at war.
We use laughter just to distract sometimes.
Absolutely.
And do you think, you said at the beginning that it didn't help you at all? Was that a joke itself, or do you think because you're a comedy writer it didn't help?
It's a joke and it's true. I mean, all jokes are true at some level, and which is why they're funny.
So we're gonna play a game because I like games. You like games?
Oh, sure.
We're gonna do a little bit of comedian word association.
All right.
So I'm gonna say a comedian's name. You're gonna give me a few words about what you and the world might think of them. All right?
All right, sure.
All right. Speed round. Stephen Colbert.
Hire me.
All right. Regina Hall.
Hire me.
Dave Chappelle.
Hire me.
All right. I have a feeling I know this one. Trevor Noah.
Hire me.
There you go. And Conan O'Brien.
He already hired me.
All right. There you go. So there's entirely a new world in the media industry right now.
Mm-hmm.
And distribution has changed significantly across media. How is comedy being distributed differently?
Very niche. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah.
You don't do a sketch show anymore. You do a Asian LGBTQ sketch show.
Right.
Or even stand-up clubs will have nights. It used to just be different ethnicities. Now it's different gender preferences. And on top of it, Twitter and every Instagram are now one of the primary means of distributing comedy, as opposed to when I was a kid waiting for Johnny Carson to ask you to come on his show and be seen by the white people who watched it then.
Right. Do you think it's different now that we expect this comedy like instantly?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How does that change the industry?
Good question. All I know is it makes me more reluctant to put a joke out there because I can be more likely accused of stealing somebody who put it up 5 seconds before I did.
Wow, I never thought about it that way.
Absolutely.
Do you think our attention spans have shrunk a little bit?
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, old joke. No, absolutely. I have trouble. I went and sat in a movie theater for the first time, and it was a great movie. And I kept wanting to like fast forward it and see how much time was left in the movie and check my phone. So yeah, absolutely.
So when you're in the mood for a good laugh, what are you watching? What are you listening to?
Oh, I'm old movies from like before I was born. I've been watching the Marx Brothers since I was 5 or 6. So I go to Criterion Channel and watch dead people in black and white, and that makes me laugh.
Is that your advice for the commoners out there?
Commoners? What am I? My advice is whatever works for you.
Okay. Well, I asked you at the beginning what the best joke about the pandemic was. The worst joke? You said there was a lot of them.
Oh, a lot of them. But let's see. The worst one I heard was knock, knock.
Who's there?
Don't open the door. You're going to die.
Well, thank you so much, Professor Guy Nicolucci. I appreciate your time with us.
Thank you, Louis. Great
and it's always a pleasure laughing with you.
Well, thank you so much again.
And we'll continue to laugh, too.
I hope so.
During the worst of the COVID lockdowns, many of us discovered new passions to stay clear-headed and happy. Here's the story.
Hi, I'm Nate. I'm 19 years old. My passion is gymnastics.
My name is Stephen Pettinelli. I'm 25. I'm a musician and a music teacher, and my passion is music.
My name is Bethany Floyd. I go to Montclair State. I'm a dietetics student and I'm 20 years old. What my passion would be is like just living a general healthy lifestyle.
Started doing gymnastics when I was really little, like 5 years old. My parents put me in classes. They noticed that I was like doing like flips around the house. Okay, let's put this guy in like a space with like some mats and like some structure.
I was raised in a musical family. My dad and other members of my extended family were musicians. My dad wanted us to play instruments, and I ended up liking it.
I started gardening because I want to grow my own vegetables. I really wanted to understand the process of growing my own vegetables and getting them from the ground and eating them that way instead of going to a store.
During COVID, I definitely was dedicating more of my time to my passion. It was definitely nice to have something to do when stuck inside like that, and my mental health was not great during that period of COVID. Sometimes there are feelings that people have that words can't express, so music can really help get that out. My family was affected by COVID. We actually all got it. Playing music was something that we could all do together when we weren't feeling horrible, and it helped.
When COVID started and I was home, I didn't have to go to work, School was online, no one knew what was going on, so I had all the free time. I would get up in the morning and I'd go on a run, I would bake anything new. I had all the time in the world to do what I wanted to try. When I changed my diet, when I started exercising, when bad or stressful things happen to me, it's almost to a point where I'm just like, I don't care, like, I'm still fine.
I work out like 3 hours just like once a week, and it's like something for fun. Even when I'm not working on my own gymnastics, I'm just like with the team and I'm helping people out. Like it's something that I really enjoy.
I sometimes write kind of more abstract kind of music. Which is nice because I can't really understand my own thoughts sometimes, and I can express them in an abstract way.
Doing recipes that are vegan, traditional recipes that are slightly healthier. I learned how to make my own bread. I make bagels, I'll make crackers.
Try a bunch of things that you think might bring you enjoyment.
Honestly, like, just try something you have never thought of trying, and if you like it, keep doing it. If you don't like it, try something else. Like, it's as simple as that.
People can find their passion by trying a variety of different things, such as like music or like physical art, sports, anything. Trying anything is the only way that you're going to find out if you like it or if you're passionate about it.
And now we're going back to Maria Hoffman in the Stratcom Center to answer some more of your questions.
And we're back. I'm here with Dr. Dawn Souflaris and nurse practitioner Casey Keegan, and I'm going to ask them some more questions. So I was wondering, and so were other students, of course, what is the protocol for those who are exempt from the vaccine and aren't boosted?
So currently, if you have an exemption on file with the school or you have not received your booster in the allotted time frame, you are required to comply with the weekly testing on campus. And I believe that is going to continue because we still will be accepting exemptions if they are valid. And there are still, some people who still need to work on getting their boosters.
And what exactly are the exemptions? Are they all medical? Is there anything that's not medical?
Yeah, so there, right now we accept religious exemptions and medical exemptions. So there's paperwork on the website that needs to be filled out. If it's a medical exemption, you need to have your doctor kind of verify the reasoning for that. And then between the Dean of Students office and the health center, we go over them and validate them as needed.
Didn't even know that.
Yeah. And the weekly testing actually happens at Webster Hall, so that will continue.
Okay.
And you'd be surprised, their testing is 1,200 to 1,500 people a week.
Wow.
People either needing to be tested because they have a mandate or because they just want to test to make sure that they're okay or they're safe if they're going into, going to see their family or they've been exposed. So it's been a very, very busy testing center the entire year.
Absolutely, and I'm sure there's so many people who miss seeing their families and they just want to keep them safe.
Yeah,
exactly. So we see a lot of people that, like you had said before Easter weekend, they're going home. Yeah. A lot of people did testing, and that, along with the testing, hawk checks will likely continue as well. So before you leave your dorm or you travel to campus, we have that as a COVID screening tool just to keep everyone safe and give you some guidance based off of what you report on your hawk check.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of dorming, is there going to be any policy changes with visitors in the residence halls next semester?
So we actually, in the last few weeks of this semester, lifted the visitor ban and relaxed some of the policies related to guests and visitors coming. And we did that because we did really well this year, and we wanted to do something to say thank you to the residential students. Say, you know what, you abided by the testing, you kept your mask on when you needed to. People abided by hawk check and all of that. So my plan and hope is that when we open in the fall, it will be a regular, normal guest and visitor policy that we have had in pre-COVID years. So that's the plan right now. We never know what the summer will bring us, but we are planning that that's how it will be to get back to some normal life.
Absolutely. Is there going to be any plans, or what is the plan right now with Red Hawk Diner and campus dining? What's going on with that?
Gotta love Red Hawk Diner, right? It's iconic here. And so, we heard students last year when it was not open be really upset about that, and they really, really liked having it. So we reopened it this year and this semester for late night dining and delivery, and that has gone very, very well. Our hope is to continue some of the delivery service, but also have it open more hours. When the fall begins. It needed some work in terms of some roofing and some other things, and so that was all done. There'll be some enhancements over the summer, but the plan is to have it open and utilized, particularly for late night food, because that seems to be when students want that kind of food, that delicious diner food. They want it in the evenings, and so that's the plan for the fall for now.
Have you ever eaten there before?
I did, and it's diner food. It gave me a stomach ache because I'm old, but nonetheless, it was delish. But I can't do a steady diet of it, but it's great.
Thank you both for your time today. That's the end of the social media Q&A, but there's more in store for the rest of the show. Back to you, Bernice.
Thank you very much.
COVID stopped so many things right in its tracks. Despite this, a new sports network came into existence right here at the School of Communication and Media. This is the story of the Red Hawk Sports Network, reported by Gianna DeGuinness.
When you think of Montclair State sports, these are the things that come to mind. But there's one component that often goes unnoticed. The guys up in the press boxes or courtside in the broadcast booth, the camera crews on the sidelines, the students in the classrooms and editing labs, and the professors that started it all.
The idea here is that every big school with any semblance of an athletics department, or with as many teams as we do, has some sort of representation when it comes to filming and showing off their athletics.
They send emails out asking about who wants to call games for this new thing called the Red Hawk Sports Network. So it was take $500 this semester and go call lacrosse and basketball.
Basketball punch, Darius Brown for three, and it's good.
The vision was really just representation and awareness for the world to see who we are, not just when you come to games. How can we get people to watch online? How can we live stream? How can we be a network?
Everyone knows the story of March 12, 2020, the day the sports world stopped, when the coronavirus suspended the activities of the NHL, NCAA, MLB, MLS, NBA, and PGA. While major sports broadcasting companies had pre-recorded shows and game replays to rely on to uphold viewership, the newly formed Red Hawk Sports Network didn't have that kind of safety net.
COVID hit a few weeks in, and things got shut down, so that was a abrupt finish to what we just started. But it was cool because it forced us to adjust. So having to do a show about sports in a semester with no sports was insane.
Once sports did start again, every single sport was playing. In that spring, we had basketball, we had soccer, we had baseball, we had softball. So we kind of went from no sports to, if there's a such thing, too many sports. How do you get creative? How do you go around that? And the answer to that was get to know the athletes, get to know the stories.
To be hopping on Zoom calls with the guys and working through the rundown and figuring out how we were going to shoot different shots, it gave you something every week to look forward to.
Since its establishment, RHSN has evolved, elevating its content output with every semester. The format of the weekly Inside the Nest show has grown from Zoom boxes and highlight videos to a full-on studio production. Talent Talk was born, giving coaches a platform to talk about their teams, and live game day broadcasts have become a major event at least once a season.
We started with 4 guys in a box on Zoom and kind of just had to figure out what to talk about for 10 or so episodes.
The founding members of the organization are incredibly proud of how far it's come, but they're even more excited for where RHSN has yet to go.
I can still remember the first conversation we had about the Sports Network, and we were drawing up a mock studio, and if you asked me back then, I probably would have said, this is something that might happen years after I'm gone. And to be able to have started it, and then even through such a difficult time put it together and see where it's gotten to has been incredible. I want to be able to come back here in 10 years and see that they are right on the level with Fordham and Syracuse and Rutgers and say, I remember when it was 4 guys on a Zoom call.
I'm very proud of kind of where we started what we had to go through. Now we've become a thing that people want to be a part of, people hear about outside of just us promoting ourselves, and they come to us to want to get involved. So I've been really kind of proud watching that growth happen over this short amount of time.
Reporting for the Red Hawk Sports Network, I'm Gianna DeGuinness.
Finally, in this hour, we end where we began, looking how people changed their life's trajectory during the pandemic. Producer Charles Flatico introduces us to filmmaker and artist Ajamu Kojo.
My name is Ajamu Kojo. I'm an artist, sometimes writer, sometimes filmmaker. Primarily my discipline is in painting, but I've been drawing since I was a little kid, just doodles and creating my own comic strips and things like that, storytelling from a very young age. So I work, my day gig, in addition to being a fine artist, is I work as a scenic artist for United Scenic Artists Local 829 here in New York City. And essentially, for those that don't know, a scenic artist is a painter who deals with anything that has to do with surfaces as it pertains to film, television, theater. I always want to preface this by saying and acknowledging the fact that the pandemic and the start of COVID was, for a lot of people, a very traumatizing experience. I have reservations about sharing this, but it's fine. I had a benefactor who supported my pursuits in fine art and who essentially supported my studio for a year. And so while I was unemployed, I didn't have to worry about having enough money to pay both my rent where I live and my studio rent. So I was afforded the freedom to create without any type of real stress. And as an artist, I can only speak for artists, I mean, that's amazing. This is something that's cathartic for me and therapeutic to get inside my studio and paint, and knowing that I can do that every day was amazing. It was great. And it enabled me to produce 6 new paintings for this series that eventually ended up at Montclair State University. In this series, Black Wall Street, A Case for Reparations, all the paintings are framed or bookended from top to bottom with what I like to consider oil dripping at the top or cascading down the painting and fire damage at the bottom. The crude oil signifies the wealth that was one of the things that catapulted the wealth within the community known as Black Wall Street or the Greenwood District. And of course, the faux fire damage is indicative of the catastrophic occurrence or massacre which took place in 1921 in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So it's a way to have a conversation on 2 different things, which is why I framed the paintings the way that I did, with the wealth at the top and the destruction at the bottom. This exhibition, Ajamu Kojo's Black Wall Street, A Case for Reparations, it's an evergreen exhibition because it's going to live on the website for, I don't know, ever? I don't know. Not forever, but forever. So you'll have an opportunity to still visit the exhibition. I count my blessings, and I acknowledge the fact that it was a blessing. It is a blessing to have been able to do that.
Liz, this whole show, just coming out of that piece, has proven that the pandemic didn't stop our creativity, but also how artists like Ajamu Kojo can get creativity from adversity.
Thanks, Bernice. Follow us on Instagram at Montclair State Focus.
And check out our brand new streaming service, Hawk Plus, at hawkplus.tv for this and more content.
Well, that's all from us here at Focus Disruption Moving Forward. We want to thank everyone who helped make this project possible, and of course, none of this could happen without you, our viewers.
Of course, thank you so much for joining us on this journey and exploring how the pandemic has changed our world for good and how we're moving forward together. From all of us here at Focus Disruption moving forward, I'm Bernice Degwa.
And I'm Louis Beyond to the Low. We'll see you soon.